Theremin Ghosts. Good evening, my name is Carl Weldon, and I'll be your thereminist tonight. What I have here is this sort of the Ford Taurus of theremins, the Moog ether wave, sort of an industry standard out there if you're familiar with the instrument. If you're unfamiliar with the instrument, the theremin was the first of all the electronic instruments, as in before synthesizers and computers and all that other such. In the 1920s, a Russian professor, Leon Theremin, working with radios, observed as you get near an antenna, the sound changes, and as you get further, when you have a radio in your house and you get near the antenna and further, the station gets clearer or whatever. So they thought maybe at that sort of proximity, that reaction between could be used to control a sound, and that principle is what was enacted for this. It works well, pretty much the same as they did back then, except they're much smaller now. They used to be the size of washing machines, and they would fill up concerts in Carnegie Hall. And it was considered a very serious instrument, and they thought anybody could play it. And then it turned out to be the most difficult instrument to play. Because unlike any other instrument in the world, it's the only instrument you play without touching. And not only are you not touching it, but there's no index as to where you are playing notes. There are no keys, no frets, no strings, no valves. No, spots to remember where a sound is. It is literally pulling, sound out of thin air. And the way it works is, my left hand, the lower it is, the lower the volume. The higher it is, the higher the volume. Like so. The right hand controlling pitch. The further I get from the antenna, the lower the pitch goes. And the closer I get. It's something similar to, because your hemispheres are fundamentally at odds. It's a righty-lefty thing, and they're flipped around. People heard it all the time in a lot of, B science fiction movies and horror thrillers in the 50s. Your flying saucer noises. And, everything from, Scooby-Doo ghost stories to, wherever else. It became the quintessential eerie sound. It disappeared for a long time and then had a resurgence sometime in the late 90s with a few underground bands here and there. But people have already, they've heard it before, and then they, when they hear it again, it's like, oh, it's that sound. Anyway, what else more can I say about it? If you want to know the physics involved, that's another lecture entirely. But for the most part, it's like arm wrestling and gorilla. It's not just waving your hands in the air. It's all muscle memory, being able to find the same note in the same space again and again. It's almost a martial art in a sense. And that is the battle of it all.
I do have one quick question. The music you're going to be playing tonight is...
I'm not playing any music tonight.
What you are playing tonight
is
composed by yourself?
It's decomposed.
Decomposed.
I play dozens of instruments, but I'm not a musician. How's that?
Okay.
So anyway, you'll hear more from it. The first piece opens sans theremin, so I will step back and let Robert kick things off.
This takes place in New Windsor, New York. The Harris Estate. On an old, much-painted wooden porch of a secrets-holding Victorian building, a young man pushes a large broom. Construction on nearby highway. Construction on the campus disturbing ghosts from quieter age. An organic age where people wore more garments, and most machinery was relegated to a city factory, railroad yard, prison, or military fortress. The young man does not notice a nest of fledgling sparrows, impressionist expanse of wisteria cloaking the porch near large Doric columns, bequeathed from a gaslit ancient age. He resides at the estate, once called McQuaid, now St. Christopher's. This is his home, his salvation. Daylilies hold perennial fire, yet the greatest triumphs and sufferings are discussed at the height of each season, in shadowed limbs of the advocate oaks, and spirits cast from local farm memory, the manor's attic, loose floorboards, forgotten root cellars, and damp basement. Voices from the servants' staircases, sibilant north wind conflicted through creaking black maples. Vapors rise from the Hudson and travel to speak with lost laborers, forgotten farriers, and waifs from the great city to refuge in the valley. Descendants of farmers have no memory of soil, of coal, but work in commercial grave plots they shoveled themselves into. Descendants of slaves validate the evidence of societal blemishes, inequality still papered over but articulated through electric deception and mind-numbing technologies of an irrelevant landscape. On an old, much-haunted, condemned porch of a secrets-holding Victorian manor, ghosts push wisteria vines and dress visitors in chilled embraces while opening the front door to the Harris estate. Office workers hear cows in early morning, despite cows not having walked the grounds in over 100 years. Crows visiting from Hudson's banks record the human drama in guttural poetry, wind words, and beak music. This is their home, the ghosts' salvation. We're going to the oldest and most significant archaeological site on the East Coast, right here in Orange County. This is about the Duchess Quarry Cave. Below the bones. When the creek runs low in July, ghosts can ford it. Unlike in spring when the water is high, they are blocked by a vortex, the nature of magic. Summer is threshold to blue mists at night fed by a refulgent moon. They who worship ancient gods are siphoned by the master of the subterranean vault. A patriarch owl hangs mistletoe on his horns. His observations can be interpreted only by shamans, for moaning spirits of old summer groan, infernal, untranslatable to farmers who move large machines through wet viscera of the strange onion gardens witnessed by Manitou from the cave, cold behind the quarry, above a pauper cemetery, sentried by white pines and ivy. Wolves carried rabbit carcasses into that cave when it was summer vacant. Blood from darker things stained memory into chert, spear point, and caribou marrow, sparingly scraped by mother, when balsam redolent stung brains, frigid snow centuries ago. Going to head north. Also, we have saved the more devastating pieces for later. This is based on a true story. The wreck of the Ethan Allen. Autumn's dominion of death stands waiting. Behind hay bales, stacked pumpkins, scarlet orchards, and tree tourists. 20 elders, most from Michigan, drowned when the tour boat capsized. The old captain was alone. He was not drunk under the sagacious October sun. None of the passengers had life jackets on. Reaper left the threshed, drought-thin fields without a November witch, raised his black cloak as a mast, and screamed a dry winter breeze across quiet Lake George, capsizing the tour boat and sinking it deep into the dark waters of the mountain lake. Ghosts will rise, rise in sublime snow waltzes above silent ice this winter. Even the Green Mountain boys would have stood in horror on the shore, for what good are muskets against the jaws of a lake? And 20 were lost to Lake George in October, 20 life stories swallowed ravenously by water, the 20 who will never again hold grandchildren. Songs uniting lovers on wedding days long ago shall wail through winter trees. And 20 were lost to the lake in October. Death defies the sun. The survivors will tell their tales of cold sorrow. The old captain will hear voices from beneath the ice of every pond and lake he sees. The aged captain will feel the dampness for the rest of his life, for he did not go down with his ship. The waters are roiling with rain fever and luminous fog, and 20 were lost to the lake in October, and 20 were lost to the lake in October. We're going
Somebody
to
passed out
New York.
hand glue earlier, I guess. Somebody's father. There we go. It's just a theory.
There's always a hesitation of not breaking up the rhythm of it.
You could never do that.
Well, I break up the rhythm of it. I'm all over the place.
We're going to Warwick, New York. And the remains of this farm were recently torn down. All right. Behind the hay bale, the crumbling farm on 94 in Warwick is a haven where ghosts rule contrived destinies. And an elderly couple nursed injured animals to health. Cool kingdoms of copperheads are auto heaps in a weed-usurped yard where the entire estate's ruin is rectified in magic. Before the barn collapsed on a haunted midnight in October, an alchemist in overalls burned an oil lamp whose shadows cast as human skulls climbed rafters and danced on frosted hay bales. He perused archaic texts under the tutelage of Crowley, Lovecraft, or strange serifs, speaking through lapis lazuli eyes and cerulean mists as wings beat cobwebs and barn spiders fled to holes in hand-hewn posts whose pegs withered to dust after 2 centuries. Houses of sorrow exist throughout the East Coast. Many were haunted amidst the colonial days, Dutch, Huguenot, English, or German. Many were haunted as tribes perambulate footpaths long since smothered by vulgar tarmac, morbid macadam. Scouts continue to traverse this trail. Why the ghosts are not critical of the lower dimensions, I cannot fathom. Surely the automobiles growl through the ethereal melange of the 4th dimension, but spirits choose whether or not to haunt. Timothy and cockleburs grow up through the battered wheels of a Ford tractor whose engine growls on spring nights, heard only by the old farmer the tractor expects to work. The barely perceptible moon washes the drought-conquered fields in white fire at night on autumn's doorstep. Equinox chanting, and the spirits converge. He fought in the war against the crown. What has he seen since the lobster-back smoke cleared from Kingston, the forts along the Hudson wail beneath brambles and generations of trees, roots climbing through old bones yet to be uncovered? Did he drink at Baird's Tavern, just a few minutes by horse, south in the village? His buttons reflect fog-diffused moonlight as he stands observing the young woman with the charred limbs and white funeral gown. She perished in fire so long ago. She must be off to meet her lover, the young soldier shot by the Tory during an alehouse argument in the fall of the year. He never returned to her. They are forever betrothed. Oh, but did the elderly man glimpse their emergence from the family plot near the dead well, forgotten since the First World War? The automobile culture flies along like a dog in heat, not conscious of other life. Cars continue to maim and mangle these mammals, descendants of those who used to visit the farm when humans were closer to earth. Now wind visits, eroding memory of damp siren spring with drought scourge. The ghosts find change irrelevant. They walk through construction workers atop bulldozers and backhoes, whispering warm breezes and longer lunch breaks, quieting the demonic engines, daydreams and unprovoked arguments with numb supervisors and money-possessed real estate brokers. Ghost farmers labor by day, milk cows in the collapsed barn by night, and even after the geriatric landholder dies, will continue to mark seasonal shift by corn husks rattling at midnight in winter wind, tree frog chamber music and deer shout in spring dusk perambulations, summer moonsong marital consummation, autumnal introspection through fat pumpkin births from crimson maple leaf dynasties. All trespassers are warned that these farmlands are privately owned, but not by the living. Thank you. Thank you. You're too kind.
It's time for a circus.
We're going to the circus. Come on along with the Black Rider. I've got just the thing for thee. Come on along with the Black Rider. I want your company. Tom waits. Carnival by the cemetery for the Knights of Columbus. Summer drives humans to madness. Family entertainment supersedes sacrilege, all for a new church. The dead were satisfied that they'd left the carnival behind, yet August beckons laborers to encamp on a stiffened arid field by the Ukrainian cemetery near Sarah Wells Trail, east from forlorn Purgatory Road. Drought has mummified grasses to September seed and stiffened amphibians and insects the length of the Hudson Valley. Ghosts sit atop outdated rides imported by flatbed from the haunted deep south. It is in revenant jurisdiction whether to allow the unrest to commence. Games and barking carnies, convicts and drunks, tinkers will beckon entities from beneath the frost line to lay lifeless ethereal hands upon the backs of sweating workers, lifting and connecting heavy machines to electric services. Jesus Christ! Did you feel that? It was freezing! Dangling cigarette falls from his lips, stamping out the smolder and dead clover. Ukrainian Catholic cemetery. As evening shroud of humidity descends, children will hear grey voices beyond the crowd. Mothers and fathers will not believe them. Family entertainment, all for a new church. People will pay for gut-churning rides in full view to monuments of rotting corpses. Summer drives deer to cross highways for water. They will be slain by wanton motorists rushing to penitentiary and the field near the graveyard. Carrying perfume with auto exhaust to hot dog stand washed down with soda. Music from a demented circus. The dead were satisfied with music of hissing rails and singing freight trains in early morning obscurity. Oh, but they could opt to block electric and wrench shouts and insane sibilance throughout maddening buzzard and crow congregations, sweeping humid skies above the lot of revelers. Instead, they invoke him. The man in the black top hat and gray frock conducts lightning overtures, family entertainment, tents blow over, wings are a cello bow through drying cattails, couples run for shelter, screams darken the afternoon, cell phones drop from cold hands, carloads of people abscond, Halloween in August, rain is their recourse, phantasm, entertainment. The people of Ukraine, thank you.
I could not bring the steam calliope, so I do the carnival music on here.
I prefer the right.
Steam calliope won't fit the Subaru. I try this.
We're going up the river.
Well, it is an estuary. You could flow up the river at one time for time, and then the other way if you want.
It is called the Mahikenatuck by the Lenape people.
I know, I estuary.
You did.
I already asked you. Estuary.
You're frightening me.
But it's healthy reaction.
Of course.
It's perfectly fine.
There's an eastern band of Lenape people in the Algonquin tradition. They're called the Wappinger Confederacy. Waking the Wappinger Confederacy. Autumn weaves new wrinkles on the mother's skin. Consciousness is cast to the top of the boughs, those leaves first brushed in paints procured in the depths of the forest. Conscious my brother's woman dampens my scholarship of weather skies. Yawn grey wisdom, her eyes bespeak the unvoiced. The maiden plays the piano autoerotic until I listen and she rises. The coffee house glows blue, imperceptible to the students preoccupied by urban status and statutes of contrived commerce in this city, once capital of New York. I listen to music of another age, notes hidden between notes called by the piano. What is this Poughkeepsie, infested with multitudes of sighing ghosts? Who tricked the elders into selling the land in 1683? I am but a conduit in this Dutch enclave enriched by wind and the rain, obeisant only to the call of the coyote entity or the hunger of a ghost she-wolf. I now stand where Adelaide dreamed, long before her lungs became obscene gardens, when Edna planned on finding Greenwich Village during the Great War and Elizabeth fished word rivers. Consciousness is hung about the high mast of a ghost-rigged ship to heave away to the haunted Atlantic on my quest for the wild spume as a birth call to grow the pregnancy of memories bestowed by stowaway entities who are mere tokens of my ancestors. Mistress of the tawdry piano, disturb the darkness. Mediterranean muse, I'll follow you along forgotten indigenous footpaths in Dutch wind blown from weird banks and foggy docks of Mahicanatuck. Cobblestones hide many secrets. On cringing winter nights, the ghosts of New Amsterdam set out from forgotten realms of unrest and take to task reconstruction of taverns, whorehouses, secret iniquity hovels in back alleys, coerced and concealed in chimney pot intrigue. Who sees these illumined entities? They speak to me in orange maple leaves and sad scarlet oak shawl, lonely, fog-sodden secret. Her locks of yellow-brown birch thought follow, trailing forlorn pastures and haned meadows, once yielding grain empires, now grazed on by workers in large, stentorian destruction machines and predators in pinstripes and macadam misfeasance. His trill sharp October wind, thick with pirate song of English interlopers, wandering shore leave dark, tavern damp. I have had much to speak in this city as in Beacon, where the library with the acoustic secrets sandwiched between the walls and ceiling wood holds more than ghost memory. I shall return to this city stolen from the original people, again to seek wandering shadows of the lunatic asylum, haunted Jesuit monastery, ghosts of African slaves and of the wartime king and his queen, who walk through the city, unusual scents on midnight breezes. Which entities of the Dutch and English occupation joined with Hessians to condemn indigenous ghosts? The great river passes old bodies of drowned and discarded felons and misfits who paid for stolen wares and food with their lives. Their bodies rise to a quiet surface of the echolalic waterway on grey misty days, glimpsed by those who sense spirits floating in the cold river mere yards from the docks of Newburgh and Poughkeepsie, cold waters lapping like a dark, thirsty hound against the slimy bow of a newly divulged English ship. Starlight angels observing through minute holes in the black, punctured firmament. A grizzled, toothless patroon's ghost reminds that in uncertain autumn, speaking through rust-washed maple hair, we exist in a narrow, diurnal window, a portal of distraction, a field of urban technological vassalage, unaware that wisps of horses, landau leather, and cow dung in crowded city streets emanates from a forgotten plane of consciousness. Vassar campus ghosts, hundreds of female entities repeat tired commencement ceremonies during equinox full moon magic. The streets ablaze in chatter of poltergeist pedestrians absorbed by automobile and industrial emotion. The tribulation of tribal families is still discussed by crows and in squirrel dissertation in parks and old lots, ghost-consumed alleyways. Their voices are carried in vengeful weather, winter sleet slung at bare faces, frost-bitten extremities, snowdrifts wherein visions afford heart attacks to snow shovel brigades, smothering July humidity and August dehydration to the foolish and unprepared. They stand noticed by children, and the resigned elderly, ignored by controlled adults, always observing, present at all auto wrecks and catastrophes, still watching the great river, glowing in fog enigma, presiding over Poughkeepsie riverbank in autumn. You had a warning about pirates to come, and they are coming.
What's a pirate's favorite letter?
Arr.
No, the sea!
Ah! Thus it begins.
I walked right into that one.
You totally
Right off
You
the
are truly
plank.
a pirate.
Right off the plank.
The whole room is for pirates.
It's the setup.
It is. The issue here is that if you made the mistake of seeing the Johnny Depp films, please erase them from your memory. It burned a hole in your brain. This is Galleon of Ghosts.
Half galleon?
No, it's replete with entities.
Maybe a quart.
Replete. The museum is moving. Papers rustle on the cabin floor. My eyes are unadjusted, but the shade of a sailor, a ghost of the grey sky, Corsair standing watch, storm, most red of storms, rain shatters the image, ghost, moisture, a senescent wheeze, cutlass slides from scabbard, pungent exhalation, blood repast, metal eats tattooed flesh, and screams echo from the sepia depths of the cephalic hull. Bagpipes rise on a misty deck, clouds anchored to the water's visage, shark scent. Who is this ragged pirate? Who is this old demon of the pitch-blend December witch? Rattling bones and rotten teeth, rum-washed memory and black powder-burnt fingers. Bagpipes die on a blood-soaked deck. The crew assembles around the mast. Unwashed bodies, sharp ozone words, hunger from decades of thirst. The sky swells to a tantrum. What is this rattling, teeth clicking, foreboding wood cracked splinters fall to wet deck? The cannons are hot once more. See the cabin boy's body gray, obscured in shadows, destroyed from malaria or some ghastly unknown febrile of the tropics. Who amongst ye? Who amongst ye has kissed the gunner's daughter? Who here has seen a keel haul? The ruin of a presumed historic hypothesis is writ of on those papers. Now, at the bottom of an apple barrel, even the whores from the port are ghosts. Dance for the rakes who pilot the ghost-rigged ship. The autumnal sky is ripe with grey winter portents. The pier is fog-washed and wears slippery autumn leaves, bearing hideous faces of encorpsed pirates, copper and crimson skin fragments shed from the forest whose grandparents were slain to feed the ship industry. We long for the crying maids of haunted Atlantis, weeks of whale omens, punctured, low cloud cover, whales, ghost whales following the ships, and the whale bellows, cringing ship's doctor covering his transparent ears. The sirens scream. Whale song foments to visions of Cythera, and the sighing sisters beckon. No, hold fast thy swords, lads. 'Tis moonlight banshee magic. The drunken cook opens his hollow mouth. Whales shriek as dry water ladle drops to the briny deckwood. Waves bust barnacle pustules upon our mooring galleons. Angry grey hide, cannons grow and rise hotter. Foul blood vengeance, we are hit! Long grey hairs trail behind the English captain as he disappears in the glowing mists. We have water in the hull. We are sinking again. Ice rises, rises. Blue consummation, glacial Golgotha, ruin. The subterranean Gothic chill stinks of my blood. Warm upon the antique cutlass, the museum is still. Time for my ration of rum. None for the rest of ye. Well, we have to go to West Point. We have to go to New York City. And we have to go down to the Deep South.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's west.
What? Guess what? I didn't hear you.
That is
Go to
west.
West Point.
West Point.
It's this way.
That's that way.
Well, West Point is
I'm
that.
pointing.
Oh no, it's that way. Wait, that's
I'm
south.
pointing west.
So
He's pointing west.
But West Point is
It doesn't matter. There is no direction in the spiritual world except reincarnation. This is about...
I wore a pink reincarnation.
Did you really? This is about my cardiac arrest.
Did I get you there?
This is about West Point's most infamous cadet. And it is not Custer.
although he ran a close second.
Yeah. But the brothers took care of him out west. The original people took care of him. Now, there is no exquisite beauty without some strangeness in the proportion. Francis Bacon. The roses and the cognac pose ghost. The Dark Lord, perhaps Sauron, perhaps a CEO, affects more than just money in the streets and teeming tenements of old New York. Entire blocks of buildings have been erected in his honor near Gracie and points surrounding Gramercy, up to the Bronx, where lights glow on winter nights in empty apartments and ravens wander from Cape Cod and Boston to form a tenebrous circle around the cottage now called Museum. Gammers and codgers who sleep near dream derelicts and crack-maddened maidens on the sidewalk, in the kitchen and Washington Square, see Poe wandering, stupor-blessed, to quiet the gusts over snow-softened cobblestone pushing through pavement like caskets in a creek-flooded cemetery. Poe is wandering, intent, alone, after sleeping in his black frock coat for more than 160 years, still wearing it, moth gnaw, cat hair, clinging through reverie fogs and snowflakes that do not melt. He passes the lions, pauses to call Pluto or Katerina to warm a lost mourner. Virginia? Virginia? He sees her asleep on the couch, the cat curled on her chest for warmth, the wood stove cold, paper fragments and charred wood, pine from a chair, oak from the Bronx piled inside the iron orifice. He still cannot afford stamps. He hated upperclassmen, but offered no special handshakes, as did drunken Fortunato. For the love of God, this mad tryst continues. Battered top hat, piss-stench trousers. Denny Haven still exists in Highland Falls, but it's not the same. Permanent perambulation, Boston, Baltimore, Bronx, Richmond, Philadelphia, Sullivan's Island, Manhattan. Mrs. Clem, why did she die? Mrs. Clem, why can't I die? The world is my chamber door forever locked, untranslated despite Baudelaire's earnest attempts at the stories, despite Mallarmé's futile encroachment onto the muse, Ligeia. I found her in a cemetery several feet beyond a topiary, clutching her visage, belladonna juice on her lips, motherwort leaves stuffed in her brassiere. Virginia, you are not Madeline. I am not Roderick, but the tunnel was encased in copper. As this tunnel is surrounded by water, the tarn is now frozen. Winter is an aged mendicant begging on the streets, begging begging, as snow washes gnarled albascent hair dyed in soot, caked in workhouse kitchen grease, rinds of turnips, lettuce, stale rye bread, loaves without fish, so close to a river? Ah, but what does Longfellow know of poetry? Why does Emerson insist on speaking at Masonic halls if poets are liberating gods? Wall him up in the temple with magnanimous Montresor, twisting the rings and scraping trowels for the love of God, all for the heap in the yard of poisoned corpses and a bosky hedgerow in the slimy bucketless well, purging child whales and wet pleads of indentured quadroons, beseeching a New Orleans businessman for manumission as his wheezing breath rattles hickory leaves and swamp oak sway in acrid smoke of burning hay in consumptive October of the immemorial year. Quote the maven or a whore as he rips orange strands of Irish lineage from the large cranium of another debutante ruined by the cystic city. Again, the Capricorn walks, extravagating the commercial causeway, trudging through mare shit and old news sheets inked in the phantasmagoric mausoleum of memory, meandering the Rue of Paris. Sick flowers grow in a garret, and cats prowl, preeminent, fed, warm, nouseless, unlike Pluto, but fire resides in the hearth. Fire presides in the lost poet's muse called Venus. Fire inside these frosted windows as the amniotic death of another verse is swallowed in the caustic strophes of the Prince of the Clouds, the man you taught to think. Fog-obscured Parisian alleys, priced flesh, witness, mulatto actress, cursing you, cursing Baudelaire, cursing his abominable soul. For as the pendulum continues to swing, the green fairy would be more apropos, and these mysterious roses are just as lovely as the petals shrink in snow. This poem is buried in the family plot. The curator of the museum on Amity Street near Westminster Cemetery in Baltimore buried it in an unused area, but he put it in the ground for me because it was my idea. Yeah, I was at Poe's grave. I go to poets' graves. Hell, some of the young ones are going to come to my grave eventually, I hope. This is dedicated to Seamus Haney, who died in August of 2013. And it's also dedicated to Utsi, the oldest mummy ever found. Bog mummy. Blindfold the dead with a coarse cloth. Cut his nipples, the rejected ruler. Shave her head, the fragile adulteress. In fog on their knees, then into a cold, greedy swamp. Bog god calls for crisp harvest bushels. Cut the throats, bury the victims. Ghosts come wrapped in hides of cupric maple skins. Frost carried across the land on crow wings. Their tribal elders meet in oak stands below. Staunched screams of gagged mouths, Celtic water pantheon mortuary hole, dug wet and cold. The human carcass will grow brown and thin in tannic gowns. Nordic hair will dye to Irish red. Muscles shall dissolve and bones demineralize to oracular glass, to a human diamond cut from peat in sphagnum capes, which future collector shall wear, him or her, on a private stage, a pedestal, a museum freak show. Awake as sweat runs down his chilled back, her nipples hard in damp night air, frost taste combs her tangled hair, once greased in pine resin, but Iron Age warrior knife tears scalp, and scarves of long hair fall about her shoulders, scraping like a backhoe, defiling their cool, soft bridal chamber in the centuries to come. Blindfold the dead with a coarse cloth, pare night's jugular. Will-o'-the-wisps call swamp demons mad. Shaman shrinks back, his grey blonde beard glistening in October-haunted moonlight. Milesian Celt chants heathen omens, animal skins. Winter-fragranced wind rises from cursed pine tracts in black depths of wraith-tainted woods. The lovers shall be married in life, married in death, a pollutal betrothal, a yarn of regret, Swamp gases lick her fair throat. They wait for the push and choke love verses, promises to walk again. In sunlight-gilt meadows, I glimpse her memory perfume in the flesh of peat fuel, cut from dark bog hide. Pungent hair forests emote in my warm cabin. I am strangely aroused as the peat moss burns. We will be locking the door soon, so you can't leave. All right, Middletown Psychiatric Center is no more.
We paid off the fire marshal.
Oh, we did. What's left of the original building from 1874 went up in flames this past summer. And I'd like to believe that ghosts did it, but I know better. Not too long ago, a nurse was murdered. This is her story. This is when the original Middletown State Homeopathic Hospital was in full vigor. That was the original name. Homeopathic. The Valley Home, which is the nurse's dormitory. Threshold. The nurse's dormitory in the washroom, where a lunatic stabbed a nurse to death over 100 years ago. The radiators hiss like a forgotten tea kettle. Outside, red bricks cry icicles. The lawns are snow. Ghosts wander this baroque convent, flashes, glimpses on computer monitors. Someone speaks, unintelligible through the cold telephone. Spirits traverse iron plumbing in the bathroom, travel through frosted window panes to the tempest. A woman's entity appears. The ghost of the nurse, her 30-year-old face, eternal shock in the antique mirror. The washroom grows, long sheets of blue ice and fog on blood-stained tile floors as radiators blast steam infernos beneath the window's gray visage. Ellis Ireland's cattle stamp of approval fresh on her soul. She is beautiful, cold, reddened with rue, then sallow and old as the thrown rug of white smothering the brown lawns. Snow wafts, pale smoke, pink, carried by north wind, secret fire. From the roof of a hulking, gothic lunatic asylum, Elsinore. It burns in memory. A lone candle flickers at night in February, or gaslight wraiths witnessed by brooding crows on sleeping oaks. Before dawn, in the hour of birth and death, they perceive that they are awake. Leather straps shudder, chains and wicked harnesses rattle, and the basement floor floods. Wintering mice and moles dart, departure from the row. Non-corporeal bleating, shrieks and moaning, governed by thick, distinct matron commands or empty retorts to the twisted. The young nurse hides, naked, in the dorm room's closet, chilled, despite new iron radiators. Breath rapid, frost exudes from blue, lips rise into purple-red hues of warm, shivering, confused. Crows speak beyond the dimmed, rattling glass of an old casement. Crows growl in Gaelic expletives, loud wind descents, groaning through mindless halls and secret glazed bedrooms, intent on toppling the covetous dormitory's thick hide. Abigail's fingernails cracked, blood-mottled breasts and taut belly quivering, dried mud tones beneath the frost line. As she warms to flesh, urine rushes down pale stubbled legs. Nipples tighten and proud flesh hardens near the damp holes in her freckled back. Her pulse rises, rhymes of frost melt from rust-brown pubic curls, stamping cold feet on the hard wood of oak floor. The closet glows, soft blue dust vespers exhale portents and hyperventilation. And Abigail hides. The crone calls from the chilled sitting room, barks in jealous judgment. Abigail! Abigail, where are are you? Come here, girl! Our young nurse knows that they are dead. She opens the closet door and wonders. Tonight I get to drown myself in the Delaware River, and you all get to watch. I have no life vest on because I wouldn't listen to the forest rangers. Now, I'm dedicating this to all of the railroad workers when Port Jervis, New York was a kingdom. Play for a day or stay over. Kittatinny canoes offer outdoor adventures for everyone who wants to experience the Delaware River and all that it has to offer. Your Delaware River canoeing, kayak, raft, tube, zip, paintball, and camping adventures are just a phone call away. Our area offers diverse seasons, an abundance of wildlife, one of the cleanest free-flowing rivers, and amazing scenery, all truly unique. From the website, kittatinny.com. This is for the Gandhi dancers, and they're here tonight. The Delaware River Ghosts. 1. Anniversary. It happens again each year. Those people taken by the maw of a ravenous river, whose placid face masks a shallow graveyard. And he had no vest on. Yes, she had no life vest on. Why would the rafters take their vests off? Was it a formal dare to the force of nature? Warm days in June, pastel landscape of fresh green, red-winged blackbirds playing chamber music with mourning doves, Canada geese cheering the rafters on, the floating beer cans, blueberry bushes hanging over shoreline stones. Mad horseflies could have worried them. Evil music radio could have prompted them to slip the life jackets off. Voices from nowhere rising. The last thing he said, it was a straitjacket. He was too hot. The girls in the shorts, those girls in bikinis, he watched. They waved. An elderly woman, gypsy, appeared on the shore. What was wrong with her dress? She had vines on her arms and legs, mud on her feet and face. She too waved. She waved to us. I stared at her. I couldn't place the old woman. She was gone. No splash. No shout. The boat never moved. She was there. She's a ghost and this place is evil. He watched me from under the water. A young man's swollen body passed under our boat. The hunter's cabin burned to the ground in 1883. Hermit put out the fire with river water. River carries hot spots, not hot springs. Burning water even in winter. 2. Autumn in Port. From the metal bridge grating, Port Jervis beckons ghosts of forgotten railroad families. Crane interviews Grand Army veterans in the park. Invisible cannons explode on Pike Street. She watched the gray skeleton rummaging through the wire trash can near the library. She sat a huge ball of gray lead attached to the front porch steps of the Victorian house. No movement allowed in her anvil feet, gravestone stomach. Yes, she knew it was madness. 65 years of living here, and none of the ghosts ever appeared in daylight. Not even at St. Mary's Cemetery, but that's not a ghost. The bones were clad in remnants of worsted woolen trousers, fabled gentleman, black frock coat, waistcoat, pieces of hair hanging like vine tendrils from the back of its yellowed head bone. No, she must not attract its attention. But wait, it had mud and river slime all over its boots. The waste of countless winters risen again. Still she could not, in the cold sweat, move. Flailing pulse, rocking her skin and blood, it began to walk towards her. Summer is an enigma, unlike the labyrinth of autumn. Bird calls, mask whispers of the dead. Starlings on the lawn, turning to look at her. as October maple leaves bluster around her feet and damp October grasses. A large dump truck strikes the bones. They vanish like mists on an August morning. 3. Rivals. Mahi-Cannituck slow estuary brags of bones. Sediment ghosts and angry currents of brackish temperament climb nearly to Troy. Along his 300-mile path, glacial memory ripens murder bodies, and despair cast from Rip Van Winkle, Mid-Hudson, Newburgh Beacon, and Bear Mountain. But the Delaware, not as deep, nearly as long, and given to another Englishman who never plumbed its benthic graveyard. Delaware picks his human fruit more carefully. Thomas West stands above Hawk's Nest, gazing at the blue serpent's carcass in awe. Hudson is a rival, a river whose survival depends on ghosts. The glowing after-image of Henry Hudson mutters, as gray clouds gutter daylight's candle. Spirits walk the shores of both rivers, counting suicides in a reverie that swallows stories forever. Who shall claim more of the watercourse mausolea of the lost? Sycamore bark floats, dislodged after a raucous dispute by intrepid vultures. The shoreline is infested with ghosts birthed from cliffs, summoned from suicide. Spirits traverse its deceptive river. The deceptive river, curious of sound, critical of skin. 4. The Slatterns' ghost. Maggie wanders the July lush banks. Her tattered dress is wet, no stains from union, no blood. She is benthic, arthritic, simple now with age. She listens for crane's chest struggle, consumptive sunrise, yet now she listens with no eyes. A haunted skull from the streets, bones protrude through her peasant apron. Farmers and shopkeepers, hypocrites, gentlemen, hands and farriers, cross-tie laborers trudge behind her, curious creosote. They do not know the drowned woman is ancient. She is maiden no more. The men are dead. 5. Aqua Repository. The source was a nightmare of return. The mouth held a collection of bodies in every phase of discard. Humanity has been cheapened, priced, catalogued, and burned into thalassic memory. Saline nascent, no rebirth but a return to an earth whose knowledge of space and of time holds countless deaths in question, souls entering millions of fetuses, and the life yarns woven into the grand tapestries of flesh song, sojourn with flesh span, human stories taken before their time. Wetlands and water bodies always bode ill for the unwary. A child, young men and women, condemned elders, stillborns tossed from the bridge, living bairns dropped to the riven riverway. They will return. Those who can see feel thusly. The Lenape used the river for its bounty. Fish, turtles, crayfish, berry bushes hanging over the banks, medicinal plants, fowl, and the purest of game. A cleaner domain, but contrary to the Eden oasis, dark things held court at night. Telluric memory and ancestor warfare surround the Delaware when pursued by mastodon stampede. Wolves carrying children off during the lean winters. Ghost and Wendigo walking across the barren winter-walled. Human stories rising to the surface on a chilled autumn night. Taken before our time, before the Wasichu, the Wendigo called. Wandering ghosts, spirits, never wear the weather of July sweat. You will know when they approach you. When the dead beckon drunken revelers to remove vests, enter the ebullience rapids, cool off near uncharted whirlpools not present only minutes before. Men from Port Jervis understood graveyard value long before electric comforted citizens at night. Railroad distraction, another cover for hiding homicides along the Serpent's winding trail. Here, the poor Gandhi dancers would conspire to elude Alan Pinkerton's boys when carrying a cadaver north of the port into the woodlands, giving the dampness a dark meal. Delaware billows lungs with cold water. Delaware vomits lost bodies, releasing rot gas, and humans floating like log jams. Late summer hoarder of nightmares. The river travels on. The valley's fog is cold and smells like mastodon. Glowing figures stand on the banks at night in brooding air. Torches are planted, loud splashing, and tree frogs call. Crickets discuss survival tactics. Kitatini welcomes you. Play for a day or stay forever.
You think we're done?
Well, we're almost finished.
Sorry.
You won't be able to escape, young lady.
Okay, you're Goshen, New York. Down in Goshen is the county seat. There's some old ghosts down there. A cemetery in Goshen. The November sky pours deliberate crows washed from private thoughts behind a massive Celtic cross, lichen brushed by rough thighs of a grey wind. I read Dickinson and follow her carriage just ourselves with strong coffee after spilling it on my book. The dead would prefer that I leave. I impress them with dark verses. An old man walks out of the mausoleum, past my car, from the past to the bars of iron and through them. Oak oil breath emerges, but there is no nearby woodpile. Farm ghosts rise from rain-darkened sod through scattered leaves. Tireless sentries of the naked orchard, dressing her in their dream fog to protect her slender limbs from the withering winter cold.
Well, I join you for this next one.
This is the last one.
That's why I was asking.
I wish you would.
Splendid.
I'll begin with my own seance.
Now, this is bad news. There was an African-American cemetery founded in Newburgh on right near Broadway and Robinson Avenue several years ago. And there was reconstruction of a building which was haunted because of how and where they found the remains. This is for the Robinson Avenue skeletons. Newburgh's secret history. 1. The widest street in America. Newburgh in sultry August is under constant watch by ghosts. Summer's humid suffocation calls strange old men with buckets and fishing poles on Broadway not far from the coffee house that always seems to be closed. Where cobblestones worn by coach wheel rim and horseshoe ghost clatter protrude through city asphalt, colonial memory adheres to my vision if I gaze past the numbing traffic and madding thoroughfare, oaken kegs, dusty wicker baskets with harvest bushels of corn, potatoes, beans, and shocking early apples speak on cooler breezes which moan down. Flash gray clouds, nimbus swollen, portending rain. Rain. The goddess of the rains grants visions, fleeting colonial morning. The shopkeeper doffs his cap to the parson, who sweeps hay fragments and bits of discarded tobacco. Elders read rough newspapers on oaken benches, pipe smoke wafting up into the curls of sallowed powdered wigs. Goodwife's dresses tumble over damp grass, and dust trails behind the carriage drawn by a disturbed young mare. The pig farmer has not shaved for days. Sweat rolls down his pronounced English nose and reddened cheeks as the hand with the filthy trousers patched dozens of times pauses to glance askance at the fine young Irish domestic trailing behind her lady, whose parasol shall never shield the round Celtic face from the baking New York sun. How did the mild May arrive here in the colonies? Was it indenture? Was it steerage like the Africans? Of course, she is Irish, a domestic without cosmetics, never a nanny who was recommended or portended by a soft rap upon an oaken door, distant rumbling in the clouds, a portent that manifests in firmament or from coach. that one day shall wear a morbid exoskeleton over cobblestones now decorated in pig and horseshit wigs of blonde hay and sundry discarded remnants of civilian commerce. An irate witch residing by the river watches and scans the angry clouds for abodement. An industrial scent on winds not yet born of the effluent of modernity. She would be burned if this were New England, but it has been over 100 years since flintlock-faced wampum and blood drooled from the heads of young warriors enraged by fire water from casks of control. She reads from the celestial grimoire of stars. She knows there will be revolution in the years ahead. A horse hitch post on Liberty Street is splashed with mud. A drunken Scot stumbles on Ann Street and falls on uneven cobbles, striking his large skull on a stone lying in the gutter. Stupefied, he dreams of a massive bridge spanning the Hudson, likely linking Newburgh with Beacon. He has never been across the river. He will walk on ice in December and disappear into the grey depths to visit quiet shores of Cornwall in April, but carved thin by eels, eroding river current, and the geriatric wizard, time. Gentlemen meet in the lodge and floorboards creak. Despite silent entrance from the frenetic pedestrian cobbled street, inquire within. The sign is a double entendre, a fellow craft misnomer. Those who read were aware of the ruse. Denizens denied books in the colonies, and they were no worse off than those who deny them by self-initiated choice today. Dandies find suites and balls. Soirees are paramount in Manhattan, London, Vienna, or Paris. 2. Residing beneath thy feet. Automobiles rob peace from the summer afternoon. August, after dog days, is a quiet preparation for harvest. But cars, loud, angry, explosive music roars past sacred plots and dislodges spirits of the dead. Stereos fire cannon blasts of hip-hop limbic torture, sound distortion across the bow of crypts and tombstones where those beneath, unseamed and scattered, should not be disturbed. The cannon assault from auto speakers pumps waves of terror through sod, clay, past root bones, and carves holes into the fourth dimension of memory, thus summoning those who wish to be left alone. Colonial conscripts, laborers and officers, and remanded convicts emerge and assemble in skirmish lines as cars disappear. The ghosts trace transparent borders of demarcation, preparing for red coat onslaught. The banks of the Hudson glow in green and purple light, even without summer foliage. And over 100 of us. Did anyone remember where we were? Nobody forgets the white graveyards. We were lost souls. Our bones near the old Broadway schoolhouse. Did you know? We resided mere inches beneath your feet. Some of our skulls forever, as you walk daily to and from school or place of business. Now we see sunlight again. All brothers and sisters beneath the school where we'd listened to the faint tap of children's feet for years. How would they have known? All brothers and sisters, is this justice behind city court? Some of us are stuck in a building's foundation. Is this eternity? Robinson Avenue, is this the end? Many hands, picks, shovels and brushes, strangers numbering and worrying our bones, casting white light upon our soil sanctity. Sod comforters, sun-warmed until autumn frost. Reach thy bony fingers up to pull dirt linens and fibrous shoals of compacted substratum about thy fair shoulders. Train rides from south states to end up in a state of secession beneath northern mud. We are cursed by the wrinkled hand of time. Rise up, skeleton children, rise up and take to the burled oaks and downing. Call the little boy's ghost from the boulder, testament from the dark pond. Wake and walk with me through the walls and ghost-tenanted shacks of the poor ward of the gas lamp city. Walk Broadway and Carter, Du Bois and in Liberty. Cast your diaphanous silt spit upon Washington's headquarters. Seek the lost history never taught in schools. Raise the good book to your eyeless thin face. See our graves cut with utility wire and pipes, bodies assaulted by electric and plumbing, which were not known during our time. Some of us protrude through the building's foundation. Family, family, oh my family. Barefoot, shoe-shod, high-button memory, withered skirts, fragments of frocked wool, and a petrified rabbit's foot in the pockmarked coat. Only love does not molder. The patriarch's casket was best, but even memoirs dissolve in attic trunks. Even tintypes vanish into dumps and landfills like British dust heaps and refuse piles near the Hudson. Comb for rags and obtuse bottles are no greater sacrilege than this. Hide you young child cry, hide you young child cry, unbidden and unbuttoned by demoniac drunkard. Hide you child in the Dutch Reformed Church, and do not leave before morning fog dances over the river. Wait till ghost farmer transacts with ghoulish gentlemen and poach his October apples and turnips before the frost folly shrinks the salad, and your shack by the banks, your fishbone mystery and coal, yanked from barrels to keep the deadfall and driftwood hot, as the baby and granny are cold. And who gonna know if them vegetables in the stew was stoled? Who gonna peach? Will the trolley derail? Will the new city yet again be reborn? Seek the lost history, never taught in public schools. Who knows this enigma better than Newburgh from August to October? And our ghosts rise from grave robbers' sight, and Digadun cut her fingers as screams rent the shades of night. Listless, in the old sycamores on First, listless we wait blocked from a jubilee of star birth. Who saw the black top hat blowing down Broadway, tossed toward the river in an early morning winter gust? The homeless man who ran after it said he heard horse hooves as it disappeared under a school bus. Thank you to Carl Weldon. Thank you for all your time. Thank you for coming. I'm Robert Milby. That's Carl Weldon. I have books for sale. The book...